And joining me now is Sir Peter Westmacott, the former British ambassador to the United States, previously to France and to Turkey. And I think in previous years you were posted in Iran with diplomatic relations with the UK.
Great to be with you again.
There's so much going on, and thank you so much. Let's just talk about Europe writ large, bracing for Donald Trump 2.0, for the new Trump presidency. He seems to be already assuming the mantle from a diminishing Joe Biden for a lot of other reasons. But Trump is doing things like taking a trip to France for the Notre Dame, reopening, but also he'll be with a lot of European leaders. In the past, he met with the Japanese Prime Minister, with others who came to Mar-a-Lago, completely appropriate to be getting going abroad during the transition. It's unusual for an American president.
I think it is unusual.
President-elect, I should say.
There was a culture, if not a law, which suggests that until you've actually got to the inauguration stage, that the incoming team should keep their distance, especially from foreign governments. Whatever that convention was, it's gone out the window, and they are very happily talking to representatives of different governments, including the British, but not just them. And going to Paris, I think, he will obviously enjoy that enormously, the guest of honor, if you like, President Macron. Let us hope that the French government doesn't fall in the coming hours and that becomes the real story. It's a political crisis in France, but it could work.
There's a political crisis there, as there is in Germany and a lot of other countries. Western allies are really fragile right now.
So Western allies are fragile, Western democracy not having a good run in a number of countries. In the UK, there is a newish government which came into power in June with a big thumping majority of 170-odd seats, and yet they've got into some difficulty in their first few months in power.
Some big resignations from that cabinet.
Yes, and the UK has got a number of inherited problems. It's got no economic growth, it's got very low productivity, and the government needs to address those things. And already members of the Labour Party are complaining about the, if you like, slightly wooden start the new British government's got off to. So you've got a German political crisis, a French one. The Brits are not in crisis, but we have got poor growth. And as your commentator was saying just now, we've really got to pull our finger out, as Mark Rutte was saying, and do more to look after European prosperity and security at a time when the incoming president of the United States is saying that the United States is not going to be doing as much for European security, particularly for Ukraine, as it has in the past.
And Joe Biden is really bulking up Ukraine funding, weaponization, to the point where he's being criticized by some in the U.S. for depleting our weapons stockpiles, which were already low, by giving Ukraine so much that we keep seeing on an almost daily basis, trying to Trump-proof Ukraine, giving Zelensky some more armor, at least, not literally armor, but lots of good stuff. But at the same time, is it too little too late because of the stalemate in D.C. that caused critical 3 or 4 months last spring when Russia did advance?
I think that the West has, generally speaking, been too slow in providing the military support the Ukrainians need to deal with the Russian invasion. If you remember, all of our generals, whether they're British or American or French, thought this would be over in a few days, if not 2 or 3 weeks. And here we are, 2.5 years on.
So is a negotiation inevitable now?
And the Ukrainians are still fighting for their lives. I think a negotiation does become inevitable, not just because there's an incoming president in the United States who doesn't want to do much, but because everyone is getting depleted, and because many people are now saying that realistically it is not going to be an option for Ukraine to regain all the occupied territory, both Crimea and the eastern parts of Ukraine up in the Donbass region. The question is, what sort of negotiation will there be, and what guarantee can there be that the rest of Ukraine does not then get attacked by Vladimir Putin after whatever ceasefire is negotiated?
Should there be some pre-NATO security commitment to Ukraine so that, however it comes out of this negotiation, maybe giving up as much as 20% of Russian-occupied territory?
And that is anathema to the Ukrainian government at the moment. I think if there is going to be a negotiation, one of the reasons why I think President Biden is correct, and the rest of us are doing this too, we have to ensure that the Ukrainians have got chips on the table when and if a negotiation takes place. If they are totally depleted and losing, then Putin will think that he's won and he can dictate terms. We have to avoid that. So we've got to ensure that they are in a strong position. Depleting our own reserves, yes, but let's be honest about this. 83% of all the money voted by the US Congress to help Ukraine militarily goes to US defense companies to produce new stuff.
Helps our
so
GDP.
It helps your GDP and it helps the arms companies.
Let me ask you about intelligence sharing, because there are several nominees or prospective nominees. They're now choices, not yet being.
Yes.
But one is Tulsi Gabbard, and she has not only no experience, she has repeated Russian propaganda talking points about Ukraine. She has had secret visits with Bashar al-Assad in Syria, and she has no experience in managing 18 intelligence agencies, so she's been widely criticized. The relationship with the UK, the most important of our Five Eye partners, is ironclad, it's hardwired, but will there be ways to compartmentalize and hold things back if someone like she is preparing the daily brief for the President of the United States?
There are ways in which you can ensure that a filter is applied to the provision of the hard intelligence that goes into the PDB. Even in the old days, sometimes mistakes were made with people.
Will they be reluctant to share with someone who is arguably not reliable?
The Five Eyes relationship has to be based on sharing. But if there is a risk of it being politicized or deliberately leaked or twisted or distorted for political reasons, then there will be a move within the alliance to hold back at least some of the most sensitive intelligence. It will be a worry. It may be that once she's there, if she's confirmed and so on, that the problem will not arise. But there's a lot of concern, you're quite right, amongst America's intelligence allies that this could go wrong.